I did a lot of bad things. Not say bad things. I think I did a lot of dangerous things being so young. So, for example, in Australia, I used to meet up with online photographers and we would do shoots, right? Like 2.5 hours into a forest in Australia. Never met this guy in my life, some old man. And I'm doing like a bikini photo shoot with him. And then I have to trust him to like send me back to my dorm or wherever I'm staying. Like looking back at my life, I think, okay, I always say this. Some people have like 9 lives, like a cat. I have a praying mom, right? I have like this Christian praying mom. And I really don't know how I survived because I did so many things, right? Because of this whole boom of online and the dangers that come with it. That, yeah, honestly, I could have been raped. I could have been killed. I could have gotten myself into a lot of trouble. And so please, anyone who's listening to this, please be careful with who you interact with online. Be careful with who you meet online because people are not always what they seem. I'm really grateful I haven't had any terrible experiences, but I've actually had friends who have been raped from like internet modeling. So yeah, just wanted to share that.
It's a very important thing because it's not something which we talk about enough. You know, when we say media literacy in general, there is a whole field of ways, just like the same way we teach moral education in school, the same way we do social studies so that we know our cultural placement, I guess, in Singapore. Media literacy is something which needs to be explored because it's almost dominating our lives. Businesses now fully function on things like Facebook, right? If you want to find out more, you need a Facebook account. And that means from a young age, you might tell your parents, Mom, Dad, you know, can I sign up for this thing? Because if not, I won't be able to keep up with whatever my friends are doing. It was a very common argument that I would have. I wanted a Game Boy and I said, all my friends have a Game Boy. And then I end up having one. Social media is that current phenomenon. In general, it's a lot to unpack, right? Because you and I, we've seen a lot, but I still don't think I'm like an expert on everything. It's just lived experience, and the way we do it and the way we kind of like processed it might be different from the way someone who is not in the media scene might, you know, or the way a young 12-year-old person might. It requires a lot of conversation. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in this trap where we don't know how to communicate and we don't know how to safeguard ourselves against like the so-called
to process all the information we're receiving. And I love what you say about process and having conversations about this, because I think when we speak about things, right, we're giving language to things. Like we all struggle with stuff, but when we talk about it, it brings like light to it, like ta-da! It's like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm experiencing. Like, for example, you know, sometimes as a creative person, I always want to be inspired and entertained, right? So it's one more article, one more video, click, you know, like, and then before you know it, you've watched like 60 videos and you're none the wiser. And you told yourself this is inspiration. And it could even be like honest market research and related to the industry. But did we actually need to consume so much information? Whereas how I see it is I realize I get really unhappy when I'm consuming so much and I'm not creating. So I think for anyone, for whether you're a creative person or not, I think we really need to look at the balance between how much are we consuming versus how much we are creating, you know, because I think if we are consuming so much information, it's often overloading our minds. It's making us unhappy. We fall in the comparison trap. You know, your mind you become like zombified because you're on this doom scroll and it's confusing, right? Like you talk about media literacy. So much information is confusing. And you know what? I also want to really highlight this. It's something I've been personally processing. I realize it's so important what I give my attention to. Because we often think like, it's just entertainment, it's just mindless. But actually we don't realize that what we watch, what we read, what we scroll through is shaping and forming who we are. And like you say, we talk about this whole like discovery of who we are. You know, are we what people see us as? Are we what we project on social media? And so much of who we are is also formed by our private life and what we see in our own time, right? So for example, if there's lots of pictures of sexy girls you're always looking at, then naturally you're going to be a very sexual person. And I'm not, this is not like a moral statement of right and wrong. But just being aware that, hey, actually, if you're always looking at something, you're going to be thinking about it. And then we wonder, and we sometimes don't understand why we struggle with certain things, like let's say porn or lust. And then you have girls, right? My girlfriends say, oh, I can't lose weight. And they can't figure out why. And they want to lose weight. And they're super motivated, but they just can't. And then I realized that watching Korean dramas till 7 a.m., then they always crave all the Korean food that they're seeing on, right? The shows or whatever ramen or whatever dishes those shows have. And so then they binge on the Korean food and they crave all this ramen. I'm like, girl, of course you're not losing weight, right? Because you're eating all this Korean food and you're always thinking about this oppa that you want to be with, So, I mean, again, it's not a judgment. It's funny, but I think it's just important to know that we are what we are looking at, and it does affect us.
Absolutely true. The same adage goes for like you are what you eat. You can bring it to you are what you consume, whether it's physically, ingesting food, or whether it's within the cognitive space. Your brain is, for all means and purposes, an organ which still has to process and take things in. And what you choose to feed your brain with eventually kind of transpires outwards, whether you like to or not. Just like your weight, right? Just like your weight, whatever you eat, it will show.
And Elliot, if we eat too much, we're going to get digital diarrhea.
Exactly. Oh, well, I like that. I've always had to, at least in the past couple of years, I would say since like 2017, I would make it a point to do like media purge. That means I would take like 2 weeks off, do my own thing. Still, some of the creature comforts like Spotify are still there. But by and large, I go back to my books. Thankfully, I was raised reading books. But just finding ways to readjust yourself the same way you would do it for what's that called? I used to do intermittent fasting, not to lose weight, but to reset the body clock so that you're like,
oh my gosh, we're so similar. I do that all the time, Elliot. I'm always doing like a social media detox and intermittent fasting. We can start a health show together now.